about to tell you the story of the man who took 17 lives between 1978 and 1991. This is Jeffrey Dahmer, also known as the Milwaukee Monster. He's well known for his involvement in necrophilia, cannibalism, and permanent preservations of body parts. This obsession started at the age of 4 with targeting insects and moved on to household animals. Once Jeffrey hit puberty, he discovered he was gay, and that's when he started to target boys and young men as his new victims. In 1978, at the age of 18, Jeffrey picked up his first victim, Stephen Hicks. Ending Stephen's life, Dahmer pleasured himself over his body and buried his remains in the backyard. Following, Stephen's parents then got a divorce, then moved away to school to Ohio State University. After failing out for drinking, he then joined the military, where he was honorably discharged. Being discharged, Jeffrey found himself back in Milwaukee, and he moved in with his grandmother. He started targeting gay bars and luring men back to this house. He lured them in by offering them between $25 to $50 for explicit photos. He then laced their drinks with sleeping pills and end their life by strangulation. Then dismember the body but preserve parts such as the head to perform sexual acts. And in May of 1990, Jeffrey's grandmother asked him to move out of the house due to his drinking and foul smell. He then got a place here at the Oxford Apartments, Unit 213. This is where he continued his obsession but began freezing the human remains. His obsession and drinking were spiraling out of control as he started to wrap remains and leave them in the fridge for human consumption. Neighbors would complain, but he would just use the excuse that his freezer is broken and that his food is spoiled. On July 22nd of 1991, Jeffrey lured in a 32-year-old man named Tracy Edwards. While taking photos, Jeffrey handcuffed and placed a knife against Tracy. Uncomfortable, Tracy asked to go to the bathroom and escaped. His escape, Tracy ran into 2 police officers who he asked to remove the handcuff. The police then escorted Tracy back to Jeffrey's house to retrieve the key. From the police officers that the key was in his dresser. The police then found the Polaroids of all Jeffrey's victims. Jeffrey was put into custody that day and later convicted of 15 life sentences.
Imagine you break into your ex-lover's house and brutally murder his new wife in a fit of jealous rage. You also happen to be a young police officer at the time, and you stage the crime scene to look like a robbery, and that's just what police deem it at the time. And over the next 23 years, you work your way up the police department and become a detective that specializes in stolen art cases, which apparently the issue of stolen art rampant enough to require its own special unit. Now, over the span of time that you got on with your life and swept that murder under the rug, DNA testing got real good, and your van goes sniffing ass is about to have that nice cushy lifestyle turned right the upside down. In 2009, police just decided, hey, let's test the bite mark left on Sherry Rasmussen's arm. The DNA came back as female. They were like, female burglars? That's not a thing. They decided to pursue the theory that the Rasmussens had suspected the whole time that Stephanie Lazarus was the killer. So the cops just went into the office, pulled a discarded cup out of the garbage that Stephanie was drinking. When they swabbed it, it was a perfect match. Stephanie's own colleagues brought her in for questioning, and that's where shit gets spicy. 23 years after Stephanie Lazarus murdered Sherry Rasmussen, the wife of a man that Stephanie used to date, she's brought in for questioning. Sherry and her husband John's families had long suspected that Stephanie was the killer, even though cops suspected it was a robbery. They had even told police that Stephanie would stalk John and Sherry and go by their house and even Sherry's place of work, telling Sherry that if she couldn't have John, then no one could. Police now had the DNA evidence to prove that Stephanie was the person who broke in, smashed a vase over Sherry's head, brutally beat her in the face with the butt of her gun, left a bite mark on her arm, and shot her 3 times. Police just went up to Stephanie in the office one day and were just like, hey, this'll just take a second. We just want to talk to you about a stolen art case. They weren't there to talk about no art. They were like, hey, did you know somebody named John Rotten? What went down next is one of the most enjoyable dismantlings of someone's aura of invincibility that you could ever hope to see. And as they suck her back into that time period, the screws that held Stephanie's face in a normal-looking position for 23 years start to loosen. Best part is they tell her she's free to go, and she goes out into the hallway, and they handcuff her and arrest her right there.
You have the right to remain silent. Do you understand?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Cam, and this group of friends thought they were opening a suitcase full of cash, but it ended up being anyone's worst nightmare. On August 19th, 2020, a group of teens went randonauting on a West Seattle beach. They stumbled upon a black suitcase. Immediately, they smelled the most putrid odor. They opened the suitcase and saw that something was wrapped in a black garbage bag. They decided to call the police. What the teens found turned out to be the bodies of 35-year-old Jessica Lewis and 27-year-old Austin Wenner. Autopsies revealed that Jessica had been shot multiple times, and Austin had suffered a single gunshot to the torso. They had both been beaten and dismembered to fit in the suitcases. The couple, who had been together for 8 years, had been killed 2 months prior to their discovery. The killer, 62-year-old Michael Lee Doodley, their landlord. On June 9th, Michael let another woman move into Jessica and Austin's apartment. When she entered, there was heaps of clothing everywhere. Under a pile, she saw the figure of a person and a bloody hand sticking out. She made a joke out of fear, and Michael laughed. Michael told authorities that the victims hadn't paid $1,500 for rent. He also has a restraining order from his own daughter because he sexually assaulted her.
This is Diane Downes, and you may be wondering, why is this sweet little pregnant lady in handcuffs being arrested? It's because she is a fucking murderer, and she's up for parole in 2021. Diane married her high school sweetheart, Steve Downes, and they immediately started having kids. She always said she wanted to be a mom. Their oldest daughter is Christy Ann. And then they had Cheryl Lynn, and then they had their son, Daniel. Diane got kicked out of college for promiscuous behavior. Steve claims that Daniel isn't his son, and that he is a result of an affair. So they get a divorce. In Diane's words, she said that she had 10 different partners that she had relations with, and less than half of them were married. So then, Diane starts seeing this guy named Robert Knickerbocker. But Robert Knickerbocker was married, and he said that he would leave his wife for Diane. She offers to kill his wife, and he's like, no, let's just move. Part 2 is already posted. Part 2 to the story of Diane Downes. So Diane offers to kill her new boyfriend's wife, and he's like, no, let's just move. Let's move to Oregon. So she packs up her 3 kids, and she moves. But once she gets there, he's like, I don't like kids. I don't want the kids to be with us. Diane starts getting desperate, so she's writing him letters and letters, and he stops answering her, and then the letters start getting returned to sender, so he's not even opening them. As soon as Diane left, he reconciled with his wife. And then on May 19th in 1983, Diane arrives at the hospital claiming that her and her 3 kids had all been shot by a mysterious man on the side of the road. So when they get to the hospital, Christy, who was 8 years old, had been shot twice in the chest. She was alive in critical condition and then ended up suffering from a stroke from all the trauma. Cheryl had passed away before they even made it to the hospital. She was 7 years old. And Danny, who was 3 years old, had been shot in the back. But Diane, who fought off the attacker, was only shot in the forearm. And it gets fucking crazier. Part 3 to the story of Diane Downes. She's up for parole in 2021, and I don't want her getting out. So she pulls up to the hospital with her 3 kids in the car saying that they had all been shot. But she's not acting like a mom who just fought off an attacker and watched him shoot her kids. She's asking about blood spatter in the car because that car's brand new and she doesn't want it to be ruined. So the police are like, what the fuck, lady? And then her ex-husband shows up. Once they figured out what kind of bullets were used, he told police that she had that same exact gun. Yeah. And police are like, but why would she kill her kids? And then they read her diary, where she writes about how her new boyfriend that's married, doesn't like kids. But there wasn't enough proof. So Diane is able to walk free for over a year while her kids are in the hospital recovering. Her 3-year-old son Danny survived but was paralyzed for the rest of his life. And her daughter Christy survived and was learning how to talk again. And Diane knew that when Christy started talking, it was over for her. Go to part 4. Part 4 to the story of Diane Downes. And she does look like Tom Brady in a wig in this one. We're going to talk about the trial. So remember how Diane said that she pulled over on the side of the road because she saw a guy and then he tried to take her car and then he shot her kids and her and then left. And then Diane raced to the hospital? Witnesses on the scene say that she was going between 5 and 7 miles per hour, so slow that it couldn't even register on his speedometer. Oh, I forgot to mention, she got herself knocked up before the trial to try and gain sympathy. Maybe it was because she knew that it was a done deal and she was going away for life. I don't know. The baby that she's pregnant with here has spoken out. I'll show you some of the footage of it. Anyway, this is Diane trying to defend herself.
I mean, that's not a believable story. If I had done this, I could have come up with a believable story. It really happened.
Yeah, so she bombed the trial. But her daughter spoke up and said, Mommy shot us. She was sentenced to life. And then she escaped. Part 5 to the story of Diane Downes. So she was so desperate to win back her married boyfriend that cut her off, she shot all 3 of her kids and then shot herself to make it look like it wasn't her. But after being in jail for only 3 years, she escapes. She climbed an 18-foot barbed wire fence. I can't make this up. She climbed this fence, slicing her shit up, and goes to her prison cellmate's husband and is sleeping with her prison cellmate's husband for like a week, and then they found her. She's up for parole in 2021, and I pray to God she doesn't get the fucking chance. Here's footage of her parole hearing from 2010. Keep in mind, in her original statement, she said that the kids were quiet on the way back. She could just hear her son quietly sobbing, meaning she thought they were all dead.
The state says that I was the one that shot them and that I wanted them dead. If that was the case, I would not have taken them to the hospital still crying.